Hello, horror hounds, and welcome back to my countdown of the best horror movies of the 21st century. In my last video, I counted down my picks for the 10 best horror movies of the 2000s, and will do the same for the 2010s here. But before we start disemboweling the last decade, a couple of Crypt Keeper's notes. Once again, I decided to challenge myself by only picking a single film from each year, one from 2010, one from 2011, and so on, in order to appreciate the passage of time while making some excruciating decisions along the way. Without that annual requirement, this list would certainly look different. Also, as a rule of thumb, I adhere to US release dates when possible. And because it always bears repeating, this is my personal list. There's never going to be a ranked list that we would all agree upon, and that's the wonderful thing about opinions. Everyone has their own. Without further ado, here's my list of the 10 best horror movies of the 2010s. Starting with 2010, Black Swan, directed by Darren Aronofsky. Natalie Portman plays a dedicated dancer in the cutthroat world of New York City's ballet, an emotionally draining and physically demanding performance that won her an Oscar. Aronofsky's vision was further realized with two of his longtime collaborators, cinematographer Matthew Libatique, whose coverage via master shots in handheld lend the film its elegance and invasiveness, and composer Clint Mansell, whose cover of Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake is hauntingly beautiful. What forms into a psychological horror film eventually hatches into full-on body horror before reaching the grandest of finales. 2011, I Saw the Devil, directed by Kim Ji-woon. After a government intelligence agent's fiancée is murdered and mutilated, he hunts down the psychopath in a revenge film that was so violent, the Korea Media Rating Board forced director Kim to recut it several times for a domestic theatrical release. I saw the devil when it washed up on American shores at the Sundance Film Festival nearly a decade ago, and I'm still rattled by it. Kim Ji-woon is one of the Korean New Wave's foremost genre practitioners, and with I Saw the Devil delivered one of the most satisfying twists on the serial killer film this side of Jonathan Demme's Silence of the Lambs. 2012, Kill List, directed by Ben Wheatley. This chronicle of two hitmen is a slow march from a contemporary British crime film into the hellish realms of folk horror. Naturalistically handled and unnervingly delivered, Kill List is bound to leave some viewers queasy, if not downright upset. For my money, it's an earnest commentary on the cycle of violence and the toll it can take on a man's soul, even if that man doesn't believe he has a soul. / 2013, Under the Skin, directed by Jonathan Glazer. This experimental and experiential injection of sci-fi horror bears a synopsis of remarkable simplicity. An alien seductress preys upon hitchhikers in Scotland. Scarlett Johansson fills the role with a transfixing performance. You can count the calculations on her countenance and observe her animalistic nature as she hunts mankind. Under the Skin abducts the audience into a study hall of human behavior and desire, leaving them blinking in the darkness and wondering what the hell just happened. It's a road trip unlike any other, steered by writer-director Jonathan Glazer, one of the most striking auteurs to emerge in the 21st century. (2014) The Babadook, directed by Jennifer Kent. Perhaps one of the most tired premises in the halls of horror sees a parent at their wits' end dealing with a disturbed child as things inevitably go bump in the night. But the mother-son relationship at the center of The Babadook holds its own, in large part thanks to the superb performances from Essie Davis and Noah Wiseman. Their fear becomes ours during the film's genuinely terrifying nighttime ordeals that borrow a page from the rise of Japanese horror. The Babadook introduced a pop culture icon and marked a propitious debut from writer-director Jennifer Kent. 2015, What We Do in the Shadows, directed by Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi. This spirited mockumentary affords audiences 2 cultural deep dives for the price of 1, bachelor life in Wellington and vampire life in Wellington.
How was your night last night?
I transformed into a dog and had sex.
Cool.
Its genius lies in blurring the two so that its subjects feel familiar despite being supernatural. Sure, they can transform into bats and practice mind control, but at the end of the day, somebody needs to wash the dishes.
The point is, Deacon, that you have not done the dishes for 5 years.
Vladislav is right. It's unacceptable to have so many bloody dishes all over this bench like that.
I'm so embarrassed when people come over here.
What does it matter? You bring them over, you kill them!
The cleverness all begins with a sharp script that's generous with gags and practically floods the vampiric well. In my book, this is the best horror comedy since Shaun of the Dead, so successful and beloved that it has spawned an equally hilarious American TV series that I beseech any fan to take a bite out of. 2016, The Witch, directed by Robert Eggers.
Boo! There you are. There you are. Boo!
Accusations and confessions are slowly brought to a boil in this petri dish precursor to the Salem witch trials. The terrifying household is summoned to life by a hexad of astounding actors, including exceptional child performances. The witch does not shy away from anything, while depicting a host of horrors with mere glimpses and the power of suggestion. What's more, it heralded the arrival of writer-director Robert Eggers, one of the most promising auteurs to emerge in the 2010s. 2017, Mother! You have to say it that way because of the exclamation point. Directed by Darren Aronofsky. The term slow burn is thrown around a lot in horror, but I dare say it's never been more appropriate or literal than in Mother. Aronofsky followed up his ambitious and consequently divisive take on the story of Noah, a wild interpretation of Earth's baptism by water, with a blistering baptism of fire. It's a radical send-up of the home invasion subgenre, starting with a pair of house guests that just won't quit. Where it escalates from there is best experienced in wide-eyed bewilderment of one of the most brazen acts of filmmaking to be distributed by a Hollywood studio. I still can't believe this film exists, and that alone is reason for its inclusion in this countdown.
Are you hurt?
The baby.
2018, Suspiria, directed by Luca Guadagnino. I consider Dario Argento's 1977 Suspiria to be one of the greatest of horror films, and I certainly never needed or wanted a remake. But leave it to another Italian maestro, Luca Guadagnino, fresh off the wildly acclaimed romance drama Call Me By Your Name, to not only change my mind, but blow my mind. 2018 Suspiria keeps the premise of an American dancer who enrolls at a prestigious German academy, where a string of murders shed light on the occult, but etches itself with historical context and explores female empowerment in a world run into the ground by men. The film also boasts a miraculous score from Radiohead frontman Tom York. And finally, 2019, a pick surprising nobody familiar with me or my channel, The Lighthouse, directed by Robert Eggers.
Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow! Hark! Hark! Triton! Hark!
This tale of a pair of lighthouse keepers, inhabited in incomparable performances by Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, who steadily lose their slippery minds when stranded on their Rock Island station, is decked out from top to bottom with exquisite craftsmanship and production design, resplendent black and white cinematography, an ominous score, a bile-filled screenplay, and a brash sense of direction. After The Witch and The Lighthouse, writer-director Robert Eggers has established his own brand of formidable folktales and drawn the curtains on a most decadent decade of horror. And that concludes my list of the 10 best horror movies of the 2010s. What does your list look like? And if you want an extra challenge, only choose one from each year. Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you down there. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Cineflect for video essays, film lists, and more. And click that bell next to the subscribe button if you'd like to be notified anytime I upload a new video. For Cineflict, I'm J.S. Lewis. Until next time, watch something scary.